Today on the newscast, could Israel and Hezbollah be heading for war over natural gas? Plus, can Hezbollah really reach every inch of Israel with its missile and rocket arsenal? Find out next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast and welcome back to Dallas. I am in the Big D all this week hosting TBN's Centerpoint show. You can catch us every night, Monday through Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and then the re-air at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I think you will enjoy it. Centerpoint is a hard-hitting news show. We've got some great guests and topics lined up all this week, including tonight. I'll be interviewing the former Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, about the crisis at America's southern border. Meanwhile, today on the newscast, we will focus on the crisis at Israel's northern border. That's right, I'm talking, of course, about Hezbollah, which has set up shop at Israel's northern border and rules southern Lebanon with an iron fist. Now, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah has not reared his head very much, the Hezbollah leader. He's been underground for the most part since June or the summer of 2006, 16 years ago, when Israel and Hezbollah last fought a war. But Hezbollah's leader, Nasrallah, does rear his head from time to time to make new threats against the Jewish state, and he did exactly that yesterday, basically threatening, number one, that Hezbollah's rocket and missile arsenal can reach every inch of Israel. And folks, guess what? He may very well be right. We've talked about the strength, the growing strength of that Hezbollah rocket and missile arsenal, which includes a growing number of precision-guided missiles, PGMs for short. They do exactly what their name says. They are designed to hit the target with greater accuracy and greater precision. Iran has been transiting these PGM parts through Syria into the hands of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. And that is why, the main reason, why you have seen hundreds, if not more, of Israeli airstrikes against Iranian and Hezbollah assets, those weapon shipments inside Syria over the past few years. So Nasrallah boasting about that rocket and missile arsenal. Remember, folks, Israel is the size of the state of New Jersey, so it won't take very much for Hezbollah to blanket the Jewish state in a future conflict, which is indeed coming. And by the way, it might be coming perhaps sooner than we thought. If Nasrallah's statements yesterday were any indication, he threatened war. He said that Hezbollah is ready to go to war with Israel over natural gas, in particular, the Karish natural gas installation off of Israel's northern coast in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, we've documented here in the newscast over the past few weeks how Israel and Lebanon have had this maritime dispute, I guess you would call it, where Israel has found vast deposits of natural gas off its coast, and Lebanon is saying, hey, wait a minute, we want a piece of the action. Because Israel right now reaping, obviously, an economic whirlwind in a good way from these natural gas finds. Now Lebanon suddenly, which never really put forth any kind of claim to that area, all of a sudden, now that natural gas has been found, they're saying, hey, wait a minute, that's Lebanese territory. Well, according to Nasrallah, Hezbollah is ready to go to war over this. He said that Israel was exploiting the, quote, riches that really belong to Lebanon, and he's ready to go to war. And by the way, Hezbollah, as we've told you here in the newscast, has sent at least 4 drones over the past 2 weeks in the direction of that Karish natural gas installation, again, off Israel's northern coast. And Nasrallah is saying to Israel, if you dare exploit those natural gas finds, we are going to have something to say about it. Israel, of course, said, don't you dare. Don't even try it, because we have something waiting for you if you do. They have put out the warning to Hezbollah. What we have is a very tense situation, folks, in the most tense, the most strategic, the most chaotic region in the world, the Middle East. Hey, if you don't know a lot about Hezbollah, if you watch the newscast on a regular basis, you should, but if you don't, a great interview I did recently in Jerusalem with Sarit Zehavi. She is the founder of the Alma Research and Education Center. She lives in northern Israel near the Lebanon border, again, where Hezbollah lives and breathes that entire region. And Sarit broke down the Hezbollah threat, why it's so dangerous, not only to Israel, but to the region, to the world. Of course, Hezbollah with the state sponsorship of the Iranian regime, for starters. But she also broke down why Hezbollah does what it does, the ideology that drives this organization, which has become, to my mind, the world's most dangerous, not only terrorist organization or group, but a terrorist army, a paramilitary organization. Take a look. For the average American at home, the average viewer, who is Hezbollah and what do they want?
The most professional military militia of Iran, based mainly in Lebanon, but also elsewhere in the Middle East. It's important to know that Hezbollah is not only a military militia, but also a social movement in Lebanon and a political party, and that's how it gains its military power from the population.
Talk about their arsenal, if you can. Some at least 130,000 rockets and missiles pointed at every inch of Israel.
We understand that it's much more than that, actually. The amounts are really huge to various ranges that covers almost all the state of Israel, and also around 2,000 drones. By the way, not only to Israel, but elsewhere in the Middle East.
Talk about Syria and Hezbollah, of course, their main power base in southern Lebanon. It seems that Hezbollah and Iran are determined to establish a beachhead right there on Israel's border.
They are already there. Since the rebels lost in the area next to the Israeli-Syrian border, Hezbollah was deployed there with 2 units. One of them is responsible for training the Syrian army, and the other one is responsible for carrying out small tactic terrorist attacks against Israel. And both of them, of course, are also fighting any uprisal of the population there.
Up north, it seems like Hezbollah and Iran are trying to encircle Israel. Do you get that sense?
Of course, that's the whole idea, to create multi-front clash with Israel in the future. But I think that also the state of Israel is doing what it should do in order to defend itself in face of this threat.
Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, has made some noise over the years about invading the Galilee. Is there a chance that Hezbollah could try to cross the border into the Galilee and into the communities of northern Israel?
I don't see Hezbollah taking over the Galilee with its ground forces that it has developed in Syria. The only thing is that for us Israelis, we must be prepared for this day and to gather the intelligence and understand what is actually happening on the other side. I'm very sad for the Lebanese that this is what Hezbollah is doing in their country.
Precision-guided missiles, PGMs for short. Can you talk about what a threat that is and how Iran is trying to transit them through Syria into the hands of Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Or to transfer the components that enables Hezbollah to, in factories based either in Lebanon or in Syria, to make the process of the rockets becoming accurate.
Why is that such a game changer, those PGMs?
Nasrallah said that, by the way, very clearly. He presented a map with all the civilian infrastructures in Israel and said, I have the capability to hit all of these. So Iron Dome has a 90% success. One missile can cause a lot of damage and a lot of casualties as well.
Very important information there from Sarit Zehavi. Again, you can check out her great work at the Alma Research and Education Center. In the meantime, if you like that clip with Sarit and you want to see more like it, be sure to tune in to the Watchman TV show on TBN every Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and then again on Fridays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you love the newscast, you will love our 30-minute weekly show where we are taking you on the ground to places like the Israel-Lebanon border every week for the inside story about what's happening in the Middle East today and in Israel, and why it matters to you no matter where you live. From Dallas, thanks so much for joining us here on the newscast today. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman Newscast episodes every weekday.